I hope that the teaching break you had this week will help you all to attend this talk in a refreshed mood. I will now give a brief introduction about today's speaker, Mr. Bharat Basti Shenoy. Mr. Bharat Basti Shenoy obtained his BE degree from Nitya Mahalinga Adyantyaya Memorial Institute of Technology, Mangalore, from Electronics and Communication Department. He has worked as assistant lecturer at NITK Surathkal, and then he got his MTech also from NIT Surathkal. Later, he was working as an assistant professor at Canara Engineering College, Mangalore for a year. Then he joined as a visiting research scholar at Michigan State University in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department and worked in labs such as non-destructive evaluation, laboratory, energy reliability and security, pellet labs, and also worked on various research projects in MSU. His skills include circuit design, implementation and debugging, Eagle for PCB design, and LT-SPICE for circuit simulation, etc. His research interests are non-destructive evaluation studies, electronic circuit or system design for real-life applications, sustainable energy, and power electronic applications. He has published several articles in the international journals, conferences, delivered hands-on training in various universities. Also participated in various hardware and innovation contests and secured prizes. Currently, he is pursuing his PhD at Michigan State University, USA, in Electrical and Computer Engineering Department, with his area of research being nonlinear electromagnetic methods for non-destructive evaluation. With his keen interest and experience in circuit debugging, he would be sharing his ideas to simplify the circuit debugging task and make it a fun-filled experience to our aspiring engineers. With this brief introduction, I would request Mr. Bharat Basti Shenoy to begin the interactive session.
Okay, yeah. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes, sir, you're
Yeah.
audible.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, madam, for the kind introduction. So I think I'll start with the talk right away. We have like an hour. Okay. So the interactive talk will be on electronic circuit debugging made fun. Okay. And you can see like I have a small YouTube channel. I won't ask you to like, subscribe, or anything like that. This is just for the benefit of students who have missed the talk, or like if you want to look at it at a later point, that might help you just for that. And I'm not a YouTuber or something like that. I'm just interested in electronics and sharing my knowledge with you. That's all. Okay, so this is the outline of my story today. So I'll be first talking about the objective of the talk, and then the problems faced by students in circuit labs, and then I'll be talking about circuit debugging, giving you some examples and trying to make you get a feel for it, and then look at problem solving, like how do you solve a particular problem, a real life problem, okay, using electronic components or electronic circuits or systems, okay. And look at some of the component specifications. We need to look at data sheets so as to make our designs more reliable. So I'll give you a feel for that. And also some things about circuit simulation. So I'll just show you one particular simulation in using LT-SPICE so that you can have an idea about how to simulate circuits, and that might actually help you in your understanding of circuits as well. Okay. Yeah. So let me begin with the objective. So the main objective or the motive of this task of this particular talk is to learn the art of electronic circuit debugging. Okay, so that's the idea. So we are going to learn how to troubleshoot circuits. Okay, and of course, like uh, as a student, also I think although I've got a lot of experience, got some experience in implementing circuits. As a student, even I had those struggling days. I had those times where I did not get the output, and like it was frustrating and all that stuff. So that's where I feel okay. There should be something that can make things easy for you guys. Okay, So that's the second objective of the talk, that is to make your life easy, to make a student's life easy in circuit labs, okay, and also make it enjoyable, okay, not just like easy and fun. So you should also know what you're doing as well as enjoy what you're doing, okay. So that's the whole point, and also motivate you towards the electronic system design. So that's the objective. And one more thing is, like, I would like to keep this talk as interactive as possible. Okay. So I'll be happy if you can talk to me, like you just give me some answers, and nobody is going to judge you here. Okay. So it's all like we are trying to learn. So don't worry about anything. I really appreciate if you can answer some things. Even if it is wrong, it's not a problem at all. Okay. Feel free to. Yeah. So let's start with the problems faced by students in circuit labs. Okay, so this is like a combination where I've been on either side, so I'm just trying to put things out in the best way possible. Okay, and as the title of the talk says, so we are going to have some fun also in the learning. Okay, so let's see what it is all about. Yeah. So first, I would like to call it as a category as a student-defined problems. Okay, so the second one I would like to call it as the real problems. Okay, so let's see, what do you mean by student-defined problems or student problems? Okay, so I think I would like you to interact at this point. So what are the things that you think of are the student-defined problems? Okay, let me get you started. Okay. So we always complain, right? The component is not fine, the device is not fine, this is not fine, that is not fine. Okay. So I'd like to get you started with that. So we would usually complain, this component is not fine, that component is not fine, that oscilloscope is not working, this function generator is not working, something like that. Okay. So anything else that you can think about?
Not properly knowing how to use the component.
Okay,
Incorrect
great,
values,
great,
visualizing the circuit,
very good.
Confusing
Anything else?
instructions.
Sorry, can you come
Confusing
again?
instructions.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, that's very good. I'm happy. So let's look at this. So some of the things that you have actually told comes under the category of real problems too. So let us see what are the student defined problems. Okay. So usually these are like the complaints that we usually have. Okay. So we say, okay, the component is not working, the instrument is not working. Then we say the instructor doesn't know anything. Okay. I'm just talking from either sides. There's no like I'm not trying to insult anybody or like something of that sort. Okay. I've also been a teacher, so I should definitely not be insulting anybody. Okay. It's just that we are learning from either perspective. Okay. So instructor problem, we usually say, okay, they don't know this, they don't know that, or whatever. Although we have not made that effort to really go to them at some times. Okay. And then waiting for components in a lab. Okay. Sometimes like there are like 8 batches or like 6 batches, and you'll have to wait for the components. So these are some small problems. And there is one more thing which I did hear when I was working way back as a lecturer. Okay, so that's like a Vastu problem. So some people used to say, okay, if we sit in this corner of the lab, we get the output. If we sit in that corner, we don't get the output. Okay, so they used to come and occupy the space. Okay, this is not generalized. Okay, these are some of the things that I observed as a student and also as a teacher. So these are some of the things that I would like to put across. Okay. And finally, the lab itself is a pain. Okay. So once you don't start getting the output in a particular lab, then you really get frustrated. So there are like certain labs where you say, okay, you don't get the output at all, or like there are certain experiments where you don't get the output. Okay. Something like that. Okay. Now, what are the real problems? Okay, let's start to look at the real problems. I appreciate that you guys have opened up and given me some answers. So some of your answers are going to come in this category now. Okay. So the real problem is in analyzing the circuits. Okay. So if you have a big circuit, how are you going to divide it into parts? How are you going to analyze individual parts? So that's what it is all about. Okay. So you need to break your circuit into smaller parts and try to identify the problems. Okay, so then you're going to know what exactly is happening. So the problem is not with all the things that we already discussed. The problem is with analyzing the circuits. The problem is with breaking the circuits into smaller parts, okay, and trying to find the errors. Okay, sometimes we don't have so much patience. Okay, we'll say, okay, everything is working properly. We don't even check whether the function generator is giving the proper output. So we are like so confident that it is working, and then we only check the output of the circuit and say, okay, we are not getting what we expect. Okay, so we are lazy enough sometimes to check what is happening, whether we are even giving the proper input. Okay, something like that. And sometimes we also have we don't have much confidence in oneself. So when you implement a circuit and if it doesn't work, okay, so you feel that it is not my cup of tea, so I cannot really do that, and it's not for me, something like that. Okay, so all these things keep happening. And the other thing that we are unaware, or at least some of us are unaware, that the devices or the components which you're going to use in your lab, you can actually check them, okay, whether they are working or not. For example, if you have a function generator and you say that it's not working, you can actually check for the output of that in the oscilloscope, change the voltage, change the frequency, do whatever you want, and see how the response looks like. Okay, so if you get a proper output there, that means it is more or less in the working condition. Okay, or if you have, let's say, an IC, okay, so maybe a digital IC where you need to see if it works or not. You have a digital checking machine where you can put that IC and see if it is working or not. Or like say a simple operational amplifier. I think you would have had some basic course on electronics, right? So you would have heard of an operational amplifier. If you need to check the operational amplifier, you would actually go for a very simple configuration like a voltage follower, just to see if it is working or not. Okay, so all the things that you have basically can be checked. That's what I'm trying to say here. And sometimes we also say like this, okay, anyways, nobody gets the output there, so why should I even struggle about it? Okay, so there are some labs, some experiments, like I mentioned, where it's really hard to get the output. So you start comparing, okay, they did not get the output, my friends did not get, those guys did not get, okay, fine. So it doesn't really matter. Let's do something. Let's try to get some partial output and just get done with that. Okay. And one more thing that I'd like to emphasize is on this. Okay. So sometimes what happens is, like, we are not really observing what is happening in the lab. Okay. Our attention is always on following the instructions that are given by our professors. Okay. Calculate some values there and do the experiment and note down whatever you see on the oscilloscope. Okay. So most of the times that's where all our attention goes. But the lab is actually not meant just for that. Okay, you're supposed to observe what exactly is happening. That's where you actually try to connect your theoretical stuff with the practical stuff. Okay, so you should try to make it more enjoyable. Okay, when you start to question what you have learned in the theory and when you put it to practice, you try to question, okay, why this is happening, what is happening here, why am I getting this output, okay, why do I see such a clean output here, okay, why do I get a reduced voltage? Okay, start to question all those things, and that's when things start getting fun, and that's when the design thing comes into picture. Okay, so let me give you a small example of what I mean by this. Okay, so let's take a example like a filter. Okay, so I don't know if you have really studied about this, but I'll just give you a brief idea about what it is for people who haven't really studied about it. So it's just a filter where you are going to give an input, okay, to a particular block. Okay, there is a RC circuit here. It's a first order because you have a single RC. Fine. So what is going to happen is you give a particular frequency, okay, and those frequencies will be passed in the circuit and the other frequencies will be rejected. It's as good as like filtering, okay. So filter only the required part, right? So this is actually called a low pass filter, okay, where the low frequencies are passed and the high frequencies are rejected, okay. So this is a first order filter circuit or RC filter. Now, let's try to look at this in a little more detail. Let's say that I'm going to implement this in the lab. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to need a source, okay, a function generator, and then I need the components, the R and the C. Okay, so I'm going to take a function generator. I set the voltage. I calculate my R and C value according to the frequency that was mentioned in our lab manual or wherever. Okay, and then I try to see the response of the circuit. I try to see what is the output of the circuit in comparison with the input. Okay, Now, if we go a little deeper into this, okay, so every supply that you have, okay, a power supply, a voltage source will have a series resistance associated with it. Okay, so now how this series resistance is going to play? Okay, so is it going to disturb some things in our in our analysis? Is it going to have some change in the input or the output? Okay, so let us start to look at it a little more in detail. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to design the filter for a cutoff frequency of like 1 kilohertz. What it means is it's going to pass everything till 1 kilohertz or everything below 1 kilohertz because it is a low pass filter, and going to reject everything above 1 kilohertz. Okay, that's what it literally means. And if I do this, then I have a calculation for f, which is like 1 by 2 pi RC. Okay, so from there I get the value of RC. Okay, so f is 1 by 2 pi RC. So I can calculate the value of RC. So RC turns out to be this much. Okay, now you have a choice to select what R and what you see that you need in a circuit. Okay, so you can select a R of, let's say, 159.15 and a C of 1 micro, or you can select a C of this and get a R of this. Okay, so once you calculate one of them, then assume one of them or consider one of them, then you can easily calculate the other. Okay, so these are some combinations that I have displayed here. Now let's see how this impacts. Okay, so now let's calculate what is the impedance. Okay, so what is the impedance of this circuit? So impedance, how do you calculate that? You take a square root of the square of the resistance and the square of the reactance given by this capacitor. Okay, so which is like root of R square plus XC square, we call it, where XC, the capacitive reactance, is given by 1 by 2 pi FC. Okay, so you can calculate all that, and when you put it in and get the value of Z, okay, at this particular frequency, because capacitance is a frequency dependent component, so you get a value of Z at a particular frequency. Okay, so at 1 kilohertz, if I calculate the value of Z, this is what I get for these three combinations. Okay, so R and C of this I get like 230 ohms, and this I get at 1 kilo ohm and 141 kilo ohm. Now how is it going to impact in my circuit? Okay, so if you look at it now, I have a input and I have a series resistance. Okay, so usually in the function generator there are some settings for the series resistance. You can go for like 50 ohms, or you can go for 600 ohms, or whatever that is mentioned on the function generator or in the data sheet of the function generator. Okay, so look at the value here. Let's say that I'm going to take this RC combination. Okay, I'm going to take like 159.15 ohms, and I'm going to take like 1 microfarad of capacitance. Okay, so it gives me a value of impedance as 230 ohms. Okay, now if I insert this 230 here, and if I say that my series resistance was like 600, okay, I set a series resistance of 600. So what is going to happen now? So I have a voltage that is now being divided into this resistance and this resistance. Okay, so you have like, let's say that I have a total of like 10 volts. Okay, I have a particular share that goes here and the remaining goes here. Okay, so whatever I give, not the entire thing is going to the output. Some of that is dropped inside the function generator itself. So this is what I mean by observation. Okay, so you may actually end up like taking one of the combinations. You don't know what is the reason. Maybe you have taken like this combination, and then you find out that the voltage has dropped. Okay, so now you need to question like, why is it dropping? What is exactly happening there? Okay, and all these things can be actually simulated. So you can play around with these series resistances, you can play around with the capacitance and all that. So I'll at the end of the talk, I'll give you a small example. I'll show you a simulation using LT-Spice, one of the simulation tools, to actually show you what I'm exactly talking about. So then things will be even more clear. Okay, I hope you get a feel for what I'm talking about. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to interrupt me. Okay, you can ask anything. So if I do not know, I think I'll say I don't know, or somebody else can answer too. We are all learning here, so don't hesitate at all to ask any questions that you have. Okay. So now let's go into how to solve these problems. Like I talked about like two types of problems, right? One is the student defined problems and one is the real problems that you face. Okay, so now how would we go about it? So for the circuit debugging, you can follow these 3 steps. The first thing that you do is you have a huge circuit. Okay, maybe you have like so many blocks, you have so many components, ICs, whatever you have in your circuit. Okay, divide that entire circuit into smaller parts. Okay, so the moment you divide it into smaller parts, now you can try to analyze each of those parts. Okay, so for example, if I have like say a voltage regulator, okay, a voltage regulator circuit, meaning I want to get a constant output voltage, okay, a DC voltage, and I'm starting from the AC mains. Okay, so I take a AC mains output and give it to a transformer to step it down, and then I give it to a rectifier circuit to convert the AC into a DC, and then that DC, which is maybe a little higher than what I want, okay, I'll be giving it to the voltage regulator so as to get a expected constant output voltage. Okay, now there are several parts in this circuit. Okay, initially you have the AC mains that is connected to the transformer. So I would look at only that part. I would look at, okay, whether the AC mains is coming to the transformer properly and whether I'm getting the output as expected. Okay, then I would look at the next part, the rectification part. Okay, whether it is rectifying properly. Okay, then if I have a filter that is placed there at the output, I would look at that part. So step by step, I will try to analyze it. Okay, I'll give you an example of all this in the following slides, so that you will get a feel for it and you will also understand what I'm actually talking about. Okay, so this is just a brief explanation of like what I am trying to tell you. Okay, and then what I would do is like check the input and output of each part, like I mentioned. Now if I want to check, okay, the transformer, I give an input to that, I check what is the input, I check what is the output. Okay, so in that way I know exactly, okay, this device is working. So part by part I try to look at it, and at the end I can make sure that the entire circuit is working properly. Okay, so you need to identify the problems. Let's say when I implement that, one of the part is not working properly. Okay, then I need to analyze deeper into that. Maybe one of the component is not working there. Okay, so I'll go into that particular part and identify which component or which IC is not working. Okay, and if it is not working, I'll actually replace it with a new one, and then that solves my problem. Okay, so these are the basic steps that I would look at. Okay, so the first thing is divide the circuit into smaller parts, which makes your life easy, and then try to check the input and output of each of those parts. Okay, and once you're done with that, you actually know what are the problems that are being associated. Okay, you identify those problems, and once you identify the problems, then you need to devise a method to solve them. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now let me not keep on talking. So let me actually get a small kind of a story here. Okay, so like when I was implementing some circuit, like it was a quiz buzzer circuit way back in my second year of undergraduate degree. Okay, so I had a team of like four of us were working on this buzzer, and then like we had no idea about how to go about the design at that particular point. We looked up for a circuit in the internet, and then we tried to go about implementing it. Okay, and we started implementing. We faced some problems in between and all that, and then we implemented the entire circuit as a whole. We didn't divide it into parts and all that, and then we weren't able to figure out what is happening. We tried to check the output and it wasn't really working. Okay, so that's kind of disappointing, because you have put a lot of effort in actually trying to build those parts, and like you have the circuit ready now, and it doesn't really work as you want. Okay, you feel really frustrated, disappointed and all that. Okay, now there are these times that are definitely going to come when you implement your first circuit or the second circuit. Okay, so at this point, what are you supposed to do? Don't get disheartened. Like go into the details there. Like, okay, in the internet, maybe they have missed one particular connection. Okay, so try to understand, try to go into the data sheets of the circuit, try to know what exactly each part of it is doing. So what I did at that point was like there was a time when we thought, okay, let's quit, like we cannot really do this at all. Okay, so it's not working, we don't know what to do now. Okay, at that point I thought, okay, let me check each of them, each of the connections that we have. Okay, and in one of the places I identified that there was one particular connection that was missing. Okay, just this one connection in the entire circuit. Okay, so when we actually connected that and to the right voltage, the circuit started working. Okay, so that joy that you get when things work, okay, that is like phenomenal. You really want to get that particular enjoyment and fun. Okay, and if you want to get that, you need to work. Okay, it won't come for free. Fine. So we are going to make your life easy here. Like I'm going to talk about all these things, but ultimately you need to put your effort to actually analyze individual parts, analyze what exactly is happening in the circuit. Okay, question the theoretical things that you have learned, try to put them to practice. Okay, try to go into literature and try to find out more information about the component, maybe about the specifications of the component. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you here is, like, there are these small things which you might have missed in the implementation. Okay, there are these small things which you may not have connected, or maybe one component is faulty. Okay, once it so happened that one of the particular LEDs in the 7-segment display wasn't working. Okay, so I was thinking, okay, maybe the 7-segment display itself is not working, but actually the part, it wasn't that. The resistor that was connected to that particular segment was actually open. Okay, so it wasn't like in the working condition, right? I checked the value of the resistance and it was showing like a huge resistance. I wanted it to be like 300 ohms or something, and it was like well above like mega ohms. So it was like basically like open or something like that. Okay, so when I replaced that, then it started working. Okay, so there are these small things which we need to play around, and when things are sorted out, definitely they're going to work. You can think about like let's say that you're going to charge your laptop. Okay, so you have a charger, so you connect it to the AC mains, and maybe you have an indicator LED on the charger. Okay, so the moment you don't see the laptop charging, okay, what would you do? You would actually go back and see, okay, whether my connection is proper. Okay, whether I have connected the plug properly to the AC mains or not. Okay, so then what I would do, I would see, okay, whether the connection is properly done to my laptop. Okay, the laptop terminal where I need to connect the power. Okay, so these are some of the things which we actually do in everyday life. Okay, all those things are what we need to come back and implement in the lab. Okay, so in a more organized way, so that you can actually get the output or get the desired things that you want. Okay, so let's have the transition now. Let's look at a small problem and let's try to put into practice of what we have talked about. Okay, so let's look at a small problem statement. I'll give you like a minute to go over the problem. Okay, yeah, read the problem. And please keep a pen and paper near you. I would like you to do some calculations as well at later points. Okay, so I don't want it to be like a passive kind of a talk. I want you to get involved. Okay, so then only it will be really beneficial. Are you done with that? I'd like to get some responses. Can somebody tell me what the problem is?
Switch off the display after 60 seconds if it's
Mhm.
idle, and then turn it on 5 seconds after a key is pressed.
Right, right. Yeah, thank you. So basically, like we always keep seeing this, right? Like even in our mobile phones, like we press the key there, or like if you have a touch screen, you press the screen. okay, and then it's going to turn on the display for a certain amount of time, which you would have set using the software there, okay, and then it goes off after that particular amount of time, okay. So when it is in the idle state or when you don't press anything, okay. So we are trying to implement something like that using circuit components, okay. And as I told you, do not use battery for the implementation, okay. So which means that we are going to have to use the AC mains and then rectify it, do transformation or whatever, okay. Yeah, so let us look at a example solution, okay. So I'll not go deep into designing the circuits because that's not the idea of the talk today, okay. That's a separate session which I used to conduct earlier in some of my workshops, where I would ask them to go about the design each individual part and come up with ideas and like, okay. So this is like more on circuit debugging, so we are going to focus on like how to solve the problems at hand, okay. Right. So now let's look at an example solution. Now, as you understood the problem, okay, so you are going to have a switch, okay, which you press, and once the switch is pressed, this particular LED is going to be on for a certain amount of time, which in that case was like 5 seconds, okay, just to show that the circuit works, okay. So for 5 seconds, the LED will be on, and then automatically it will turn off, okay. And the next time you want to turn it on again, you'll have to press a switch, so the reset switch, okay. So now here, if you look at the entire circuit, okay, so you have like several parts here, okay. So you have like AC input that will be given here, okay, to the transformer. So this actually goes to the transformer, okay, which is going to step down a voltage from 230 volts to whatever you require, maybe a 12012, okay. So you would have heard about a transformer, right? Definitely everybody knows about it, but then there are some specifications associated with the transformer which you need to know. So if they say, okay, it's a 230 volt 50 hertz transformer of like say 12012, okay, what it means is, so 230 volt is the input and that 230 volt is the RMS, okay, the root mean square value. It's not the peak value, it's the root mean square value, okay. So the peak is definitely going to be higher than that. It's going to be like 230 into root 2, okay. So at the output side, if you have a 12012 like you have it here, okay, so which means that if this is 12 and this is 0, so you're going to have a AC RMS again of 12 volts, and here again you're going to have a 12 volts. So if you take from this point to this point, you're going to have a 24 volts, okay. So understand the specification, and if they say 50 hertz, that means you're supposed to make the transformer work at 50 hertz, or that's the value for which it is designed, okay. So now after that we have a rectifier here, okay. So this is a simple full wave rectifier that is being used here. You can go for a bridge wave rectifier as well, okay. And then you have a filter, so whatever the input that I have here, okay, which goes to the transformer, and the transformer rectifies it, so you're going to have everything on the positive side now, okay. But it's going to be like a ripple, right? So you want to actually you want to reduce the ripple, so you're going to have a filtering circuit here. You're going to have a capacitor which tries to smoothen the waveform, and then that is given to your regulator circuit, okay, which actually takes the input and regulates it to a particular value. So this actually acts like our power supply, okay. And this particular circuit is a simple circuit, a timer circuit, which actually you set the time right in the beginning. Okay, I want the output to be on for this much amount of time, okay, and then you press the switch, the output will be high for that much amount of time. That's all it is going to do, okay. And then I connect LED there so as to give an indication, like I mentioned in the problem. Just use a LED for indication, okay. So this is what it is all about, okay. Now instead of asking you to find out the problems associated, so let's look at it in a different way now, okay. So let's look at it from another perspective. I need you to answer right now. So how can you really screw up this circuit? How can you make sure that this circuit doesn't work? So what are the things that you would do to make sure that this circuit doesn't work? So can you give me some answers? I can get you started. Maybe I'll say, okay, I don't do the connections properly, okay. So anything else?
Use of wrong components.
Use of wrong components, good. Okay, so maybe I had to use a 7805 and I've used a 7812, so I get a different voltage or it's not working. Anything else?
Placing the diodes in the opposite direction.
Very good. Okay, if I place it in the opposite directions, okay, it may not really work as I want. Okay, anything else? Think about all the
Sup-
things that
sup-
you can do to screw up the circuit. Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead.
The supply voltage should not be in the optimum range.
Okay, the supply voltage should not be in the optimum range. So maybe I use a different voltage here, because of which this value is very high, and maybe this screws up, or this spoils this particular IC. Maybe the supply voltage is not in the range. Very good. Anything else?
Capacitor should not be fully charged.
Capacitor should not be fully charged. Okay, so maybe if you think about it, I don't give so much time for the capacitor to charge. Okay, so maybe I put a different value of capacitor which is not expected. Okay, yeah. Anything else?
Mounting the IC in the wrong direction.
Okay, so putting the IC in the wrong direction, maybe I connect the VCC and ground as different. Maybe like for the positive voltage I give the negative, and for the negative I give a positive. Very good. So the IC is going to burn. Okay, anything else? Anything else that you can think about? What about this LED? Maybe I reverse the direction here and it doesn't work. Okay, maybe all your circuit is fine, but then I reverse the direction of this LED and it's not working. Anything else? Maybe I put a very high resistance here, okay, which reduces the current to such an amount that the LED does not glow at all. Okay, that could happen. Anything else that you can think about?
Wrong pin connections that we give.
Very good. Very good. Wrong pin connections. Maybe here, like pin number 1 is ground. Okay, but I connect ground to this particular point. Okay, to pin number 7 by mistake. Okay, or maybe while soldering, I have shorted pin number 8 and pin number 6, which were not supposed to be shorted. Okay. Anything else? Very good. I'm happy that you are opening up and like you're coming up with ideas. That's very good. I appreciate that. Okay, so yeah, let's look at this now from the other direction. Okay, so what did we do? We tried to think about all possible ways to actually make the circuit not to work. Okay, so don't you think that if we reverse all of that, we are actually going to make the circuit work? Okay, so maybe as you mentioned, you don't you change the pin configuration of the IC, you don't follow the pin configuration mentioned in the data sheet. So if I connect everything properly, then this IC is going to work. Okay, and if I had a proper resistance that was being placed there, if I had checked the resistance value prior to putting it in the circuit, okay, and it matched with whatever was there in my design for R4, then don't you think that it would have worked? Okay, maybe I had done a reverse connection for the diodes. Okay, so I would have I would do that in the proper way. Don't you think that the circuit is going to work? Okay, so whatever the things that we discussed now, if we reverse them, okay, if we do everything in a proper way, then the circuit is definitely going to work. Okay, so these are the very things that we need to check when we are going about troubleshooting the circuits. Okay, so what are the things that we need to check? We need to check if there are any connection errors. Okay, so I'm going to check every possible connection. So you have a multimeter. A multimeter can actually check the continuity in the sense if those connections are made or not. For example, if I want to check whether pin number 3 here is connected to this particular resistor, what I would do is I would put the multimeter in continuity mode. Okay, and put one probe here and another probe here. Okay, meaning one probe to pin number 3 of this IC, okay, the metal part of that particular pin, and then the other end of that probe to the resistance R3. Okay, so if it gives me a beep, then that means that it is continuous. Okay, so the connection is made. So I would do that for every component. If I face a problem, maybe the circuit is not working, then I would do that for every connection and make sure that all the connections are proper. Okay, so then I have eliminated a very big issue there. Okay, I have eliminated what? The connection problems. Okay, so now the next things that I'm going to do, I'm going to look at each individual component there. Okay, so for example, R3 is 1 kilo ohm. I'm going to take it out, measure it in the multimeter, see if the value is near 1 kilo ohms. Of course, there will be a tolerance. Because of the tolerance, the value may be a little lesser or little more than what we desire, that is 1 kilo ohm. So there might be like a plus or minus 5% or a plus or minus 10% tolerance. Okay, so but I'll make sure that all these values are as per my design. Okay, only then I will connect them in the circuit. Fine. I can also check the capacitance. Fine. So, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that all the pins are connected properly even here for this particular IC, for the 7805. And if I have a doubt on this IC, what am I going to do? I'm going to take that separately. Okay, only take that 7805, give an input to that. Okay, and then check the output and see if it is regulating. Okay, basically its job is to smoothen the voltage, regulate the voltage to a certain value. Okay, I will check whether that part is working. Okay, so if I have a doubt on that, I'll only check the transformer. Okay, I'll give an input to the transformer and check the output of the transformer. If it is matching to the specifications that were mentioned, then I'm fine with that. Okay, so part by part, I'm going to look at it. So whenever you face the problems, right, you're going to go to these very things that you had done to screw up the circuit. Okay, look at them from the other direction. You're definitely going to solve all the problems at hand. Okay, so even after that, maybe like you connect the LED properly, okay, the anode and the cathode. Even after that, let's say the LED is not glowing or it is not turning on once I press the switch. Okay, then it means that the LED is faulty. Okay, because if you check the output here, let's say that the output here is like a proper expected output, maybe a 5 volt or whatever. Okay, and even at that voltage, if the LED is not glowing, that means the LED is fine. LED is not fine. Okay, so then I would replace the LED, put a new LED, and then it should work. Okay, so even after giving a proper input voltage, let's say maybe 10 volts to that, and it doesn't give a 5 volt, that means my regulator is not working. Okay, I would replace the regulator. So look at each of the individual parts, and once you sort out all of them, okay, connect them together, it's definitely going to work. Okay, I hope I'm giving you a feel of how to go about debugging the circuits. So divide this into parts like I mentioned in the earlier slide. So the first part would be only the transformer connection. So you have your mains, okay, the transformer and the AC main. So look at that part, and after that you'll have the rectifier part. Okay, so look at the rectifier part, whether it's working. Okay, after that you have the regulator part, look at that part whether it is working, and then you have the reset switch. Okay, so you can look at the voltage at this point. Basically how this functions is, if I press the switch, then this voltage should go down to 0 because this is the ground reference. Okay, so this voltage goes down to 0, and if I don't press the switch, this is going to be a high. So if that is working, then that means my reset switch circuit is working. Okay, and then I would look at the 555 timer. I would look at these capacitances, whether they are charging. Okay, so ideally they will have to go from 0 to 1/3 VCC or 1/3 to 2/3 VCC, whatever is there in the design. Okay, I would look at those voltages across the capacitor in the oscilloscope. Okay, so if they are not fine, then that means either my capacitor is not working, or my resistor is not working, or my IC is not working. So I would only look at RC then. Okay, if the capacitor charges before connecting to the IC, that means my R and C are fine. Okay, and if the capacitor does not charge after connecting to the circuit, that means my IC is not fine, but R and C are fine. Okay, so in this way I'm going to look at every part in the circuit and try to eliminate the problems that can come. Okay, and after that I'm going to definitely get to where I want, get to what exactly that I expect. Okay, I hope you get a feel for this. So let's go to the next part. Okay, now like we discussed here, we'll divide the entire circuit into parts. Now let's look at this in a more organized way. Okay, let's look at how to actually solve a problem. Like given a problem statement like this, how do we go about solving it? Okay, so this is how I would go about it. So first you understand the practical problem, like I gave you time to understand. Okay, so you know what exactly is expected. Okay, and once you are done with that understanding, just make a general system level block diagram. Okay, a very generalized thing. You need not be an electronics engineer for that. Okay, any layman can actually come up with that diagram. You know what the inputs that you want, you know what the outputs are, and accordingly you can actually build that general system level diagram. Okay, so if you look at for this particular problem itself, okay, this particular problem, then it would be something like this. Okay, I just have a system. I don't know what that system is. I know that there is a switch which I'm going to press. Okay, once I press the switch, the LED is going to be on for this much amount of time, maybe 5 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever is mentioned in the problem. Okay, so I just have the system. I give an input and I have an output. So I have identified what is my input, I have identified what is my output. Okay, so you need not know about any component here. So this is just the first level block diagram. Okay, so this is what I am meaning by phase one. Okay, once you are done with that, then what you do is divide the entire problem into parts. That is, you have represented it as a system, right? Now that system has to be divided it into certain parts. Okay, that's when things start becoming easier for us. Okay, so if you have the entire system like this, what do I need now? I need a power supply, I need a rectifier circuit, I need some kind of interface. Okay, so I would actually put it in this particular way. Okay, my entire system, I would say, okay, I have a AC mains which is going to be given to a power supply, okay, or a voltage regulator that's going to give me a constant voltage. In this case, it was like 5. If you have observed it here, so there was a 7805 regulator, which actually means that it's going to give an output of 5. So 78XX. Okay, so if it is 05, it means that it's going to regulate it to 5. If it is 12, it is going to regulate it to 12. Okay, something like that. Now, if you look at this, so you have a part by part thing now. Okay, you're not going to look at the entire circuit. So I have a switch and I know that there is some kind of a delay that I need. Okay, once I turn the switch on, or I press the switch, the output should be on for a certain amount of time, right? So there should be somebody to keep that account of the time. There should be some kind of a delay or some kind of a timer that is being placed. Okay, I don't know what that circuit is. I'm going to just look at it from the top level. So first the system, I have no idea about what the system is. Then I go into the blocks. Okay, so I have the power supply, I have the interface. The switch interface could be as simple as what we have there. Okay, what did we have there? We had only a resistor and a reset switch. So that's just the switch interface. Okay, so it's just a fancy name that I give here. Okay, just to make you think about what might be there. Okay, and then you can come up with different circuits there. You can use any kind of circuit. Okay, I have used like a resistor and a reset switch. You can come up with some other innovative circuits as well. Okay, and then you have a delay circuit for which I have used a timer. Okay, you can think about any other things as well, maybe an RC circuit or something else. Okay, maybe an op amp and an RC circuit, something of that sort. Okay, you can think about it. And then an LED interface circuit which goes to the LED. Again, the LED interface circuit could be as simple as just a resistor or an LED, or it could be a bit more complicated where you use an IC, okay, which then is going to be given to your LED. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you here is, when you think about solving a problem, try to put them in blocks. Okay, and that makes things easier. What it will actually do is, it will not only help you to understand what is happening, okay, it will also help you to debug. Okay, that's why I'm actually showing you this block diagram. Like I showed you in the previous solution. Okay, I just showed you an entire block and I told you that, okay, divide this into this block, this block, this block, this block, something like that. Okay, that's exactly how we are going to start approaching the problem. Okay, so if you have approached the problem in a proper way, you already know what is your expected input and output. For example, if I have a switch here, I'm going to give an input to this switch interface. I know what is the input, I know what is the output. Okay, so I exactly know how it works. So I can check only this part, whether it works or not. Okay, something like that. And if I know what my delay circuit is, I can only check the timer circuit. Fine, something like that. So if you build this kind of an approach, it actually makes your circuit debugging very easy. It makes your life very easy, even in circuit labs, or maybe when you're going to implement it for your projects or anywhere else, or maybe as a hobbyist, you're going to implement some circuits. Okay, things are going to be really, really easy. Let's come back to the next step. Like I told you, the phase 2 is going to be dividing into smaller parts. So you are going to the next level block diagram, right? And you're going to try to think about what parts that you have. Okay, and once you're done with that, what you're going to do, you're going to think of realizable circuits. Okay, like I told you here. So if I have a switch interface, so what is a realizable circuit? Just a resistor and a switch, like I have it here. Okay, so this is going to be my realizable circuit for the switch interface. Okay, so that's what I mean here. So think of realizable circuits for each of those blocks. Okay, and once you're done with that, okay, once you know, okay, these are the circuits that I can use, then what you can do is you go back into simulation. Okay, you can simulate the circuit, or you can test the circuits on a prototype board. Okay, a proto board or a breadboard, which you know it as. Okay, so once you are done on the breadboard, because in the breadboard you have that flexibility, right? You can actually make the connections make or break the connections very easily. So you can try different things. That's why it's called a proto board. You are going to make some kind of a prototype on that, which is not like a final version, right? So it's going to keep iterating and keep becoming better and better. Okay, but you are trying different ideas. Maybe you try this circuit, it doesn't work. Okay, maybe you try that one, it works, something like that. Okay, but you need to justify, you need to know exactly why you're going for this circuit. You need to know exactly why you're not going to use this circuit as well. Okay, so you need to know how the circuit works for all that, right? And once you're done with all of it, then you're going to implement that on a printed circuit board. So that will be like your final design. So once you have everything set up, once you have made a general system level block diagram, and then you're divided it into smaller parts and trying to get those individual blocks, and you've thought about the realizable circuits, the individual blocks, the circuits for the individual blocks, and then you have made a simulation or you have tried it on a breadboard. Okay, once all that is done, you're going to implement it on a printed circuit board where you're going to use soldering, and it's going to be a much sturdy connection. So it's definitely going to be much better than what you would have done on a breadboard. Okay, until you make the soldering fine. Okay, so this is the approach which you can follow. Okay, you can think about it in your own ways. This is one way that I have thought about it. Okay, this is the modular approach, like I already showed you this slide earlier. Okay, so divide it into a make it a, like look like a system initially, and then try to divide it into smaller parts. Okay, yeah. So once you're done with this, you need to think about realizable circuits. You need to think about what are the options that you have. Okay, now when you think about these options, there are several things that you might think about. Okay, there are several things that you need to keep in mind. One is by using different circuits, you may actually be consuming more space on the board. So you'll have to try to make your circuit as compact as possible. Nobody wants to have a very big mobile phone, right? So you cannot have the mobile phone as big as your laptop. You need to have it smaller. Okay, so you need to have a particular idea about the dimensions that it takes. Okay, and accordingly you need to design. You cannot have like say 10 components. You can, if you can do it with just 2 components, I would definitely go for those 2. Okay, and then you need to also keep in mind about the efficiency of the circuit. Okay, so maybe in some circuits I want it to be very efficient, like in a mobile phone I want the battery to last for longer amount of time. So in that case I'll have to use efficient circuits so that they run for longer amount of time, or they consume very less power to do the same operation. Okay, so I need to think about in those particular ways. Okay, if you're doing this in the lab just for the hobby, then it's all fine, but when you're actually going to implement it somewhere, okay, which is going to go to a certain person, maybe you're going to deliver it to a customer or something like that, then you'll have to think about all these things. Okay, okay, so now let's go to component specifications. So let me quickly go over this. So you already know about the resistor and all that. So the resistor is just a component which actually limits the flow of current. Okay, so what are the basic specifications that you can think about in a resistor? So of course you should know the value of the resistance, and then there'll be a tolerance associated, and then there will be a power rating associated. Okay, so this power rating is really important. So if you pass a higher amount of current in that resistor, the resistor might actually get spoiled. So I have some applications for the circuit here. Okay, so you can see this. So these are some of the things that you would see when you implement the circuits. Okay, so maybe I like I showed you earlier, there is a power supply, and there is a power supply, an output voltage, or like an LED and a series resistor, and I want to know what is the value of this resistor. So I can easily calculate that, right? I know that what is the voltage that is dropped across this, and I divide it by the current flowing, and I can calculate the value of R. Now, what is the wattage rating that I'm going to use? What is the power rating? Now you need to be very careful. Let's say that after calculation, I get something like 10 watt. Okay, then I should give a certain margin. I cannot keep it like exactly 10 watts. Okay, I give a certain margin, like maybe in my circuit, okay, I'm going to use a resistor of the wattage rating which is much higher than 10 watt. Okay, so maybe I go for like 15 watt. In that case, I'm actually building a reliable circuit. I'm giving some kind of a margin, right? I have a 10 watt dissipation in my circuit, but I'm going to keep it as a, I'm going to take a resistor which can dissipate 15 watt. Okay, by choosing this extra wattage, you might actually be spending money there. Okay, so you'll have to think about those things as well. Okay, is it worth it? So for that extra 5 watt, the margin that I've given, is it going to cost me? So how much is it going to cost me? So what am I going to do? Is it okay to increase the price by like 3 rupees or whatever? Okay, something like that. Okay, so try to think about in those directions as well. Okay, not just the calculations and all that. So when it comes to an end user, how is he going to take it? He wants it at a less price, right? So he wants reliability as well as at a less price. So there needs to be some kind of a trade-off. You need to mark that, okay, this is what I'm going to give. This is what the maximum I can give. Okay. There is another application where the resistor goes again for like the current limiting. Okay, maybe in power electronic applications where we have very high currents going into the load, we would actually need a current limiting resistor to limit the flow of current. Okay, so the moment it crosses a certain value, there will be a voltage that comes across the resistor which exceeds the expected, and then there will be a diversion of the current. So instead of the 1 ampere going here, now there will be a part of that going inside the IC. Okay, so you'll have a resistor being used there. Okay, another component, a capacitor. Okay, so what does a capacitor do? It can store electrical energy. Okay, so the basic specifications that you can think about. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, for the resistor, you need to know the value of the capacitance, and you need to know the type of the capacitance, maybe an electrolytic capacitor, a ceramic capacitor, or something like that. Okay, and the voltage rating for that capacitor. Okay, so what is the maximum voltage that you can give to the capacitor so that it does not spoil? Okay, so let's look at the sorry, let's look at the some of the applications. So in this circuit, can you tell me what should be the voltage rating of the capacitor? Can you quickly tell me that? Say I have a 12 volt here, right? So whatever it is, I'm not going to exceed this voltage. Okay, I'm going to have anything less than 12, or I'm going to have at the maximum of 12. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to give a 5, I'm going to get a 5 here. Okay, I'm going to give a 3, I'm going to get a 3 here. Okay, after a certain amount of time, of course, because it's an RC circuit, so there'll be a delay. Okay, now what I'm trying to say is, if I have a 12 here and I know that the maximum that comes here is 12, I'm going to take a capacitor which can handle more than that. Okay, so then again I'm building reliability. Maybe I take a capacitor which can handle like 25 volts. Okay, or maybe it can handle 20 volts. Okay, in that case the capacitor is going to be fine. Okay, so this is another application, like we saw earlier, there was a capacitor, right? Okay, for after a rectifier, this is used for filtering. Okay, now in this particular case, I know that whatever it is, there will be a positive voltage that comes across the capacitor. Okay, so in that case, you can actually go for an electrolytic capacitor. In the electrolytic capacitor, you need to make sure that you connect the positive terminal here and the negative to the ground. Okay, meaning that there is a particular polarity, there is a particular direction for the flow of current. You cannot reverse that. Okay, so that's how it has to be. So if you are very sure that the current is flowing in one particular direction, like in a rectifier where all the voltage is always positive, then you can go for a electrolytic capacitor. But in case of a filter circuit, okay, like we discussed a little bit earlier, so what happens here is I'm going to have a AC voltage here because this is an AC input. So in one cycle the capacitor is going to charge, another cycle it's going to discharge. Okay, so there'll be a positive and a negative voltage coming across the capacitor. In this particular case, what I can do is I can go for a non-electrolytic capacitor, because if I use an electrolytic capacitor, then it will not work over there because I don't have a constant direction for current, right? I don't have a single direction for the flow of current. Okay, the current flows in both the directions. Okay, in that case, I'll have to go for a non-electrolytic where you can go for a ceramic capacitor or something like that. Okay, I'm just trying to expose you to the basic specifications so that it will help you when you actually design the circuit. Okay, so let's quickly look at a data sheet here. Okay, so I think we are kind of running out of time, but let me try to still give you the perspective of what I want you to know about. So this is the data sheet of a diode. Okay, so 1N4001. Okay, 1N, it means that it is a single junction. Okay, now if you look at it, so they are going to give you a diagram here where you can know, okay, this is the anode, cathode and all that stuff. Let's look at some of the specifications that are mentioned. Okay, so you have something known as a DC blocking voltage there. So in one cycle, the diode is going to pass the voltage, the other cycle it is going to block the voltage. Okay, so if it is going to block the voltage, you need to know what is the maximum capacity that it has. Okay, how much can it block? So you need to know about that, right? So these are the specifications that are mentioned here. Okay, so if you know that in your circuit the maximum blocking voltage that occurs across the diode is like say 300 volts, then you cannot use these diodes because they can do only up to 200. So you're going to use either a 400, either this one, the 1N4004 or 4005 or whatever. Okay, now you can also choose a 1N4007. It has like 1000 volts, which is way better. You have a better reliability, right? You have like 700 volts difference there. Even if there is a small variation or even if there is a huge variation in the voltage, so your diode will still be fine. Okay, but by using this, if you are increasing the cost of the system, then that may not be a good design. Okay, so then you may have to go for this because still you have a 100-volt difference, so you are still fine. So think about the cost of the circuit as well as like whether it can function as you want and whether you can build in reliability. Okay, so if it is just for hobby purpose, it's all fine, but when you're actually going to deliver or if you're going to do it for a particular customer or if you're working in a company, then you'll have to think about all these things. You cannot simply choose the components arbitrarily. You'll have to think about why you have chosen them and you'll have to give the best possible fit, the optimized one. Okay, so there are several specifications and this is a specification with respect to the forward voltage. Okay, so this is the range of the forward voltage that they mention. So all these things will be mentioned here. Okay, and at the end of the data sheet you'll also have the dimensions of the component. So this will actually help you when you go for the PCB design. Okay, the printed circuit board design. So think about all these things. So this might actually help you when you actually come up with the PCB design. Okay, now there is another data sheet that we have. Okay, let me quickly go over it. The linear regulator that I was talking about, the voltage regulator. So like I mentioned, the 78XX series, if it is 0.5, then it regulates to 5 volts. If it is 0.6, 6 volts. If it is like 2.4, it's going to be 24 volts, regulating to 24. So if it is 7.824. Okay, now there are several specifications again which will be mentioned here. Okay, so if I want to get a, let's say 5 volt, okay, so then I'll have to make sure that my voltage does not cross a particular limit. I cannot give like say 100 volts and expect the regulator to give me 5 volts because there is a limit. I cannot cross this 35 volts. Okay, and there is a limit on the lower side as well. I cannot give like 1 volt and get like 5 volts. Okay, so there is a certain dropout voltage that needs to occur in the IC. So that also will be mentioned in the data sheet. So you need to have at
Excuse
least
me, sir.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but the data sheet is not visible. So
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm really sorry. I think have I not shared the entire screen? Yeah. Let me do one thing. Let me share the entire screen. That's the reason I think it's not visible.
yeah.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah. So you can look here. So as I mentioned you earlier, so this is a place where they give you the information about the component, like say what voltage that is going to regulate to, and here you get the pin configuration of that. Okay, so pin number 1 here is the input, pin number 2 is ground, and pin number 3 is output. So if it is an IC, they'll also give you a pin configuration, and there'll be a small notch which indicates the start of the pin counting. Like you have a notch and then it starts like 1 2 3 4, something like that. And like I mentioned earlier, so these are the absolute maximum ratings. So you cannot go more than 35 volts so as to get a 5. Okay, so for all the regulators which go from this voltage range to this voltage range, that is 5 to 18, so it is 7805 until 7818, you are going to have a maximum input voltage just as 35. Okay, so think about all these things. So the specifications will be mentioned here, and like I mentioned, the dropout voltage here, so you have to give at least 2 volts more than what is expected. So if I have to get a 5, I need to give at least more than 7. Okay, something like that. And then the wattage dissipation, the voltage that you get, everything is mentioned here for a particular specification. Like if I want a 6, then they might say, okay, it may go from 5.75 to 6.25. Are you okay with that? Okay, does your circuit have any problems if the voltage drops to, let's say, 5.8? You need to look about all of these things. And then there'll be some thermal aspects as well, and some typical applications will also be given here. Okay, and at the end, like in the diode data sheet, you'll have the dimensions. Okay, so you'll know how to connect it in a PCB. Okay, yeah, right. So let me go to the circuit simulation. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to show you the simulation of that particular circuit. I hope this is visible. Can you
Yes,
see the
Yes, sir.
simulation?
yeah,
Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So let's see this. I have built the same circuit. I have a voltage source, a sinusoidal input, and then I have a RC here. Okay. And I'll just run this and see what I get. Okay. So I have given a peak to peak of 20 volts. So the peak is like 10 here. Okay. And a frequency of like 1 kilohertz. So my expectation of output would be like say 70%. If you look at the response of the filter, it usually says that it passes 70.7% of the input to the output at a frequency of like 1 kilohertz here, because that is the cutoff frequency. So you can see that value here. So when I hover the cursor over it, you can see all those values being depicted here. Okay, so it's roughly about like the peak is at 7 point something. Okay, now what I want you to look at here is, if I give a series resistance, right now there is no series resistance. If I give a series resistance of like 600, so see what happens to the input. So the input is at 10, right now it is at 10. So if I simulate it now, you see there is a drop in the input voltage. So this is what I was talking about, because the circuit that you have here is actually loading your power supply, or it's loading your function generator. Okay, so at this setting, this is not a good particular combination for R and C. Okay, so ideally I would want this R series to be very small, but if I make, let's say my R series is 1 ohm, then it may not really affect much. So you can still see that all the voltage that you give from the function generator goes to your circuit. Okay, so this series resistance is also very important. So the increase in the resistance is actually a problem for you, and if that resistance matches with the resistance that you have in your circuit, okay, then there is always going to be a huge problem. Okay, so think about all these things. You can play around in the simulations here. Okay, you can set a range of values for the series resistance and see at which point you are going to have the all the voltage go to the output. Okay, and then go back and see if you have that setting in your function generator. If you do that, then it definitely works. Okay, or play around with the R and C's here so as to still get your entire voltage that you give from the input to go to your circuit. Okay, so all these things you can do here in the simulation tool. So whatever you learn in theory, you can actually put it to practice. For example, maybe you would have had a class on operational amplifiers today, and your professor talks to you about a voltage follower. Okay, so you go back here and try to figure out an op amp. Okay, and then see if it works. Okay, maybe you look for a non-inverting amplifier, change the resistance, see how the gain varies. Okay, play around with all that. So that will actually make your theoretical concepts also very strong. So these simulation tools will really help you. Okay, so that's the intention of showing this. Okay, let me not save it now. Okay, so concluding remarks. So at the end of it, so I hope that you have got a feel for like the data sheets. Okay, so you need to look at the specifications of the components, and you also look at like the circuit debugging, how to go about debugging your circuits. Okay, so look at all that and also get a feel for the specifications of the basic components. Okay, so try to get these ideas. This was the whole motive. And also look at the simulation tools so that you can play around with the circuits and try to see what exactly you want to get. Okay, and try to see if your theoretical concept works. For example, in that simulation I told you that the voltage drops. Okay, now can you calculate that value? Okay, theoretically you know how to calculate it because it's simply a division of the voltage. It's a two resistors in series, so it's a voltage division. I have a formula to calculate that. Now apply that formula and see if it works in the simulation. Okay, so by doing this your theoretical concepts will actually get better. Okay, and when you go for the design you exactly know what you need to look for. Okay, so on the conclusion with respect to circuit debugging, I would like to put it like this. Okay, so it's actually hard to change others, so it's always better that you blame yourself. The moment you blame yourself you start identifying the problems at hand. Okay, so from the student defined problems you actually go to the real problems. Okay, and once you go to the real problems you actually try to find a method, devise a method to try to solve them. For example, if my op amp is not working, I'll devise a method to try to test my op amp. Maybe I'll do a voltage follower, a very simple circuit for an op amp, and see if it is working. Okay, maybe a regulator, I'll just check, give an input voltage and look at the output voltage and see if it is working. So devise small methods which are very easy to implement. Okay, and see if those devices are working. For example, if it is a MOSFET, you usually have a reverse connected diode, okay, from the drain to the source, so you can check for that diode forward voltage in your multimeter. Okay, so if that is not proper then you may have issues with your MOSFET. Okay, and if it is a transistor you can again check the beta in your multimeter. Okay, or you can check for the forward voltage, the VBE. Usually we call it as like 0.5, 0.7, whatever it is for silicon transistors. Okay, so you can check all these things. Okay, and then actually that makes your design more reliable and you know what exactly is happening, and if there is an issue you know how to rectify it and come up with things. Okay, so that your circuit really works. So this I would say as like kind of a recipe to like make things work for you. Okay, I hope that I have done some justice to the title of the talk as well. Okay, in terms of having fun with circuit design. Okay, and circuit debugging, and also given you a feel of how to go about circuit debugging. I hope things become easy when you start doing your experiments and when you start implementing circuits. Okay, if you have any questions I'll be very glad to answer them. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, students, you can ask questions. You can feel free to ask any questions you have.
It's fine. Like if you
Yeah.
don't get any questions right now, you can also think about it and write to me later. Okay. So if you feel any problem in some of the parts that we discussed, or if you're facing any other issues, so you can always write to me and we can discuss about that. Okay. So, and
I
feel
had
free to
a
ask
doubt.
anything that you want. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm from mechatronics department second year,
Okay.
and we were being taught LT Spice. We had our first class last week,
Okay.
and we were in the question we were asked to make a
Mm-hmm.
integrator op amp,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did what was there in the manual,
Okay.
and for some reason, like many people were getting different outputs.
Mm-hmm.
So like even though their inputs and all that were same, we
Mm-hmm.
were getting different output. And so
Mm-hmm.
like what do we do in those situations?
Yeah.
Like some were getting correct output, some weren't getting the correct. I don't know what could have been possibly different, but
Mm-hmm.
from the looks of it, it looked same only.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so now the simulation tool, let's talk a little bit about the simulation tool. See, in the simulation tool, you have a lot of settings that you need to set properly so as to get the proper output. Okay, so for example, I showed you this series resistance, right? So I changed that resistance and then the value change. So on a default, there might be some values that are already being there. Okay, in that case, you will have to play around with those things. Okay, like one of my professor used to say earlier, the simulation tool is as intelligent or as dumb as you are. Okay, so which actually means that you need to make it work. You need to set the things properly in there. Okay, so as to get your desired response. So whatever you feed to it, it's going to give you. If you feed garbage, it's going to give you garbage. If you feed something good, it's going to give you something good. Okay, so that's what it is all about. Okay, now another thing is, whenever you look at these capacitor circuits, also look at what voltage that you get across the capacitor. Like I told you here, so in the circuit debugging, like look at individual parts. Like say if you have a integrator op amp, okay, I'm assuming that you have an inverting integrator. Okay, so then the voltage at the minus and the plus terminals should actually be almost equal, or it should be nearly zero. Okay, because there is a virtual short that happens, and you can check that voltage. Okay, so if that voltage is not proper, then there might be some other issue. Okay, there might be one small connection issue or something might have happened there. Okay, or maybe they have used a different op amp. So for different op amps, you may actually get different responses, because each of the op amps will have like different values of voltage gains or different values of the input impedances. Okay, and another thing is, like, it also depends on what is the value of the resistance that you use. Like I showed you earlier in this example. Okay, like I showed you in this example, like you can see, just by changing the R and C values, you are actually having a lot of change in the input and output of the circuit. Okay, although your RC together is fine. Okay, R into C is fine, but then you choose this particular combination, you don't get it. You choose this particular combination, you get it. Something like that. Okay, so look at each of them individually. Okay, sometimes what happens is, like in that particular integrator that you said, you're going to have a power supply, and then you're going to have a R, and then you're going to have like a ground because of the virtual short between the minus and the plus terminals. Okay, so look at what current is flowing in the resistor. Look at that current, okay, in your circuit, and look at that current in another person's circuit. Okay, so somebody who is getting the output. Okay, and look at that from a theoretical perspective. What are you supposed to get? Because it is simply like I is equal to V by R, right? So look at each of these individual parts. So at some point you will actually find out what exactly is the problem. Okay, so that's what I'm going to tell you. Like, look at individual parts, you know what you're supposed to get at every point. Okay, you know what the voltage across the capacitor should be, you know what the voltage across the resistor should be, you know what the power supply has to give, you know what the output has to be. Okay, so attack them from individual sides. Okay, and then you're definitely going to get what you want. Okay, does that answer your question in some way?
Yeah, it does, but I was a little bit confused because I actually did that, and
Mm-hmm.
I made sure, because we are new to this LT Spice, and like we
Okay.
didn't tamper with any settings
Mm-hmm.
which, like,
Right.
we didn't know what it did. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I was a little bit confused. But
Okay,
yeah, I'll try that. I'll
yeah, you
definitely
try
try
all these
this
things. Okay,
approach.
try whatever I told you. Okay, look at each individual parts, and for that you need to know how it works in theory. Okay, LT spice is a different thing, but what I'm telling you is, you need to know what is the voltage across the resistor. You need to know what is the current. Okay, in theoretical terms, you need to have a calculation for that. Okay, once you have that calculation, then you go to LT spice and implement and see if it matches. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. And once you do all these things, if you still face a problem, then you write an email to me and we can discuss about that. Maybe we can even have a Zoom session or whatever, the MS Teams or something like that, to try to solve that problem. Okay, so try it on your own. That's what I would suggest in the beginning with whatever.
You are muted. Excuse me.
Yes, sir. You are on a mute.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to hear me earlier to this?
Yes, sir. You got muted like 3-4 seconds ago only.
Okay, okay. Then it is fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I hope it gives you some ideas, some directions of how you should go about it. Okay. Play around with it, then you will definitely get to where you want. And if you face any problems, feel free to write to me. So we can try to address them and solve them. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. No problem. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, sir. If it is possible, it would be great if you could share your email address to all our students. The interested students can contact you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll do one thing I'll send you a link of these videos as well of the
Okay.
talk as well as my contact. I'll send it through Professor Asha so that she
Okay.
can circulate it among the students.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, sir, could you send your YouTube channel link because I wasn't able to find this like exact channel.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'll do one thing as I mentioned, I'll send the link to the videos. Okay. Like recently, I'd given a talk for NITK, a webinar. Okay. So I have some videos from that. Okay. I'm going to send that link via email to Professor Asha. Okay. And then from there you can access, because as I told you, I'm not planning to get more viewers and all that. So I'm sure that if you even type this name there, you are not going to get the videos that you are looking for. Okay. So I'll just share the videos via the link through email. Okay. So then you can see all that. You'll have all my information there. You'll also have the email and all that stuff. So you can then write to me.
Any other questions? Okay. So if there are no further questions. Thank you, sir. It was really a good session. I would request our HOD to speak a few words.
Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Maitri?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. So first of all, let me express my deep regret. Extremely sorry that I could not join in the beginning of this talk. I had some issues with my audio as well as the network. Even now also I have some issues. Hope all of you are able to hear me, but all of your voices are very feeble to me.
You're audible, sir.
Okay. Am I audible? Something happened.
In between
Hello.
connection, in between there was a loss of connection, but now you are audible, sir.
Okay. Okay. So Bharat, thanks a lot. So taking your time off and sharing your experience, and I am sure that all of our students have enjoyed a lot. And since they are just getting into elections this semester, or some of, I think a little bit in the previous semester as well, and surely it must have given you a great insight, or very good insight into the circuits and issues, etc. I do not know anything about all those things. At the same time, I also should thank all our students. I saw a good number of students have participated in this, and it is very. It would have been very nice that some of them should have given some feedback how they have enjoyed this. Maitri, did you ask for any feedback from the students?
Not in the form of questionnaire, sir, but maybe I can circulate in the later stage.
Yeah. Okay. So they can express how it has helped them.
Okay.
And definitely, we look forward in the future also, Bharat, to catch up with you if something of interesting to our students. We will definitely request you again to address our students. I don't know. I have not. I don't know whether we have come across any time Bharat. I don't know how you are known to Asha, etc. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you are from in this region only, right?
Yeah. I'm from Mangalore itself, Professor. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So where did you had your graduation here?
Yeah, I had it in NMA MIT. Like I had my undergrad in NITE. Yeah, masters at NIT,
So,
NITK. Mm.
Okay. Sorry, I missed out that initial part.
Oh,
Otherwise,
no
I would have
problem.
known this. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, that's really great that yeah. So you are sharing your experience and knowledge with students of our students.
Mm.
And as I already said, surely we will look forward to you in future as well. I should also thank Asha. I don't know whether she is here. Asha is here. Maitri.
Yes, sir. I'm here only.
Okay. So thank Asha also for having organized this kind of a talk, which is really very relevant to the students. And also Maitri for joining Asha to organize this. And again to all my students. And I really wish that they have enjoyed this talk. Bharat, thanks a lot again, once again. So we will be in touch in future as well. Let us see how we can move ahead. So thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So that's all from my end. Over to Maitri. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So on behalf of Dr. Chandrasekhar Bhatt, faculties of Mechatronics Department, MIT Manipal, I would like to thank Mr. Bharat Basti Shenoy for giving such a wonderful talk. It was really an interactive one. Our students have certainly enjoyed the session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Maitri.
Thank you all students for attending the talk. And